key Glock sound is all about energy, cold, unapologetic and dark, and his secret weapon, his choice of samples that set the tone before he even says a word. Whether it's the airy flutes in ambition for cash,
bitch, I'm in my bag,
the nostalgic pianos in Play for Keeps,
I eat the weak, I'm a beast. A bowl of rappers I feast. You know they say talk is cheap.
or that mysterious Eastern vibe in Move Around.
If I can't get your nigga, I'ma get your mans. Yeah, hood rich, nigga might spend the block.
He likes beats that sound like they've got a story to tell. Dark, kinda weird, but still clean. And these beats don't just knock, they paint a picture in your head. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build these kind of samples. I'll break down one of my own melodies, step by step, from sound selection, layering, processing, and everything you need to bring that dark energy to life. So when I started working on this, I already knew I wanted that dark ethnic feel. And for this sample, I actually flipped an old idea which I had sitting in one of my older project files. Here's how the raw melody sounds with no effects. Once I had the bass melody, I wanted to shape the tone to make it more unique. I added a few effects like H910 dual harmonizer, some reverb, and some EQ to clean the harsh frequencies. The harmonizer added a little bit of width and that detuned character, which was exactly what I was going for. Once I had the harp processed and sitting right in the mix, I wanted to add a second layer that wouldn't overpower it, just something subtle to support the mood. So I grabbed a simple piano from Contact, nothing too bright or flashy. I kept the melody really simple, just enough to follow the rhythm of the harp. The goal was to complement the main layer, not compete with it. Once the piano melody was done, I rendered it into audio and dragged it inside a Fruity Slicer, something I do quite often. Chopping it like this gave it more bounce and that sampled feel, instead of sounding like a straight MIDI loop. To fill out the higher frequencies and add some atmosphere, I layered in some soft pads. I kept it super simple, just a subtle ambient sound that sits behind the main elements. It's not really supposed to stand out, it's just there to glue everything together and give the sample a more complete feel. To add one more layer of sound, I added this texture from this Contact bank called Kinetic Toys. It's just this single note which loops itself in a really interesting way and adds this subtle movement in the background. Sometimes the smallest sounds can bring the most character, and this one helped in fill those empty spaces without getting in the way. Now, onto the main part of the sample, the flutes. I grabbed two different phrases from a Contact library, and here's what they sound just by themselves. They had the vibe, but felt a bit too polished and structured for what I was going for. So I chopped them and flipped them up into something more unique. I focused on grabbing the most important parts of each phrase, then rearranged and pitched it into something that felt more authentic. That completely changed the energy. Now it sounds way more unpredictable and blends in perfectly with the harp and the piano. To finish it off, I added some vinyl noise in the background. Now that the sample is done, let's move on to the master chain. This is where I glue everything together and give the sample that final polish. First off, I've used sketch cassette. I use this to give the entire sample a subtle tape saturation and wobble. I don't overdo it, just enough to give the sample some warmth and imperfection, especially in the mid-range. It also rounds out the highs a bit, which makes the sample feel softer and more aged. Next, I throw on Cymatic's Origin. Even though I already used it on individual layers, I'm using it here super slightly to decrease the sample rate. That's it. Then we've got Valve Compressor from Goddard's, and this one is clutch. It adds this crunchy vintage compression that glues everything together and brings out some of that lo-fi character, kind of like how older records hit a little harder without being too clean. After that, I added Ozone Imager. This helps control the stereo width and gives the sample a wider feel without messing up the mix. And finally, I end with a clean EQ. Usually, I'll roll off some sub bass just to keep it clean and tame out any harsh frequencies. This is just a final touch to make sure everything sounds smooth and nothing's poking out. With everything now on the master chain, here's what the final sample sounds like. Well, that's the full breakdown of the sample. Hopefully you picked up a few gems, whether it's layering, chopping, or just having a different approach when it comes to sample making. And if you're feeling the vibe of this one, you're gonna want to check out my brand new sample library. 20 original samples all in that dark cinematic lane. This exact sample is inside it too. So if you're trying to cook up with something a little different and something that actually stands out, you'll find it inside the pack. Click the first link in the description, and thank you so much for watching.